Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable our lecturer, Mr. Hafid Ali, and my beloved friends, and now I'll share about theoretical approaches to literature by Group 8. Group members are Rosalia Uli, Siti Rahmawati, and me, wafi afifatussiddiqoh, and Wanda Mudawina Muhalis. Theoretical approaches to literature. As the classification of genre and text types, the approaches in literature also classified into many kinds of methodologies, which has different characterization for each. All of the approaches in literature reflect a particular institutional, cultural, and historical background. Historically speaking, the systematic analysis of text developed in a magic or religious realm and in a legal discourse. In the past time, in cultural history, magic and religion indirectly furthers the preservation and interpretation of text in a wider sense of the term. It really has the close relation with the oracles and dreams, which is becoming the starting point of textual analysis and becoming the basic structures in the study of the holy text in our religions. Literary criticism derived its central interpretation from these two areas of textual study, the exegesis of religious and legal texts were based on the assumption that the meaning of the text could only be retrieved through the act of interpretation. Biblical scholarship coined the term hermeneutics for this procedure, and it has been integrated to literary interpretation over the past several centuries. Within the field of literary studies, there are also literary theory which has developed as a distinct discipline by philosophy. It analyzes the philosophical and methodological premises of literary criticism, while literary analysis is mostly interested in analysis, interpretation, and evaluation of primary source. Literary theory tries to shed light on the very methods used in the reading of primary text. Among the many diverse methods of interpretation, it is possible to isolate four basic approaches which provide a grid according to which most schools or trends can be classified. They can be classified between text, author, reader, and context-oriented approaches. The following theoretical schools can be subsumed under this for basic. Because the previous two basic theories have been discussed by Group 7, and now Group 8 will discuss the other two basic theories. First, reader-oriented approach. Reader-oriented approach developed in the 1960s called reception theory. Reader response theory or aesthetic of reception. Reception theory is obviously opposed to a new criticism's dogma of effective fallacy, which demands an interpretation free of subjective contribution by readers. These approaches assume that a text creates certain expectation in the reader in every phase or of reading. These expectations are then either fulfilled or are left fulfilled. The reader's expectation plays a role in every sort of text, but it is most obvious in literary genres like detective fiction, which depend very much on the interaction between text and recipient. Edgar Allan Poe's The Murders in the Rue Morgue is one of the examples of this approach. It guides readers' imagination and expectation in different directions. And characteristics of reader response approach. Uh, Carlisle emphasizes emphasizes the importance of the active and communicative nature of reader response theory, which fits the purpose and language practice in contemporary trends of ELT or English language teaching. What are the basic assumptions of reader response theory? Reader response defines the interaction of the reader with literary text as a variable which influences and changes the text and constrains meanings. Defines the theory as follows. It views the reading process as a transaction between the reader and the text in which the reader, with his past experience, beliefs, expectation, and assumption, interact with the perspective in the text, and meaning is determined as the result of this transaction. Thus, reading in this approach is a reflective and creative process, and meaning is self-contracted. Pick in Garrison and Pena defines reader's response approach in classroom as follows. The transaction is one where the shape of the gap or entrance in the text is determined by the shape of the reader who enters as well as the text being entered. Essentially, different readers cause the gap to adopt different shapes. Further, what is indeterminate for one reader may not be indeterminate for another. This means that readers influence the literary texts have the power to change them and interact with them. In other words, they have a similar role to the author as explained by Jasmine. The reader shows author the literary text. Ways of implementing reader response theory in introductory literature course and the characteristic of the developmental model. A number of activities or techniques can be used in order to apply the reader response approach in literature classroom. There are one, at the first, reading logs, the second, response journal, the third, critical questioning and writing, the fourth, self-questioning, the fifth, role play, the sixth, drama and letter writing, seventh, rewriting narratives for another character's point of view. All of the assignment listed above provide students with an opportunity to convey their personal responses to literary text. The research described in this article includes critical questioning and writing analysis. The developmental model of a reader response approach is presented by Thompson, who describes several levels of response to a literary text. According to Hardy and Thompson, at the moment, the readers pass the level of basic understanding of text. They take the role of an onlooker and theory-made processes are developing as a result of the text reader interaction. The first is empathizing with experience of other people. And second, evaluating characters. And the third, accepting or rejecting the values and actor. And Thompson proceed to define the levels of the development models as follows. Level 1, literal understanding, which involves understanding the information presented in a given text. For example, a story. According to Thompson, students read at the level of basic understanding without paying close attention to details or involving analysis. At this stage, as described by Thompson, characters are seen mostly in terms of stereotypes and only as good or bad. Readers read and form only simple mental image or anticipate further action but only in very short terms. Level 2, empathy, which includes personalizing the text, relating the text with students' own lives, and sympathy with some of the characters. Readers are interested in characters and the motivation of characters in more complex terms, analyzing not only action but also consequences. Level 3, analogy, a stage during which readers learn about their own lives, start making connection with characters and creating connection between their personal experience and fictional events described in literary text. Level 4, reflection, a stage during which leads to deeper understanding of other people and their motives, during which the reader think about the events and the behaviors in the text, thus evaluating the characters and the theme of a story. Level 5, evolution of fiction. Evolution of fiction. This stage, which involves seeing the entire literary text as the construction of the author. At the same time, this stage involves the analysis of author social and cultural values and comparison with student values. Level 6 is recognition, and this stage during which the readers are aware of the textual function of the reader and author, considering the relationship between those functions, exploring their own identities as readers. In addition, the readers become aware of the reading process and their own self-understanding. Benefits of reader response implementation in literature courses. Probes discussed the benefits of implementation of reader response approach in a literature or writing program. Among the goals of the program list, the following can be emphasized. First, students will learn about themselves via reflecting upon their behavior and their experiences. The second is students will learn about others, developing their empathy and understanding. The third, students will learn about cultures and societies, their varying concepts and issues of human experience. Fourth, students will learn how text shapes our thoughts or our emotion. How the emotion, how the text encourage an individual to see things in certain ways. And Tucker, when discussing the benefits of RRT implemented in a similar context to the one described in this article. Discussed the value of reader response theory in introductory literature course. According to Tucker, the benefits are the following. The first, it enables the student to experience relevance in a learning task. The second, involves them in active and passive encounter with the literature. And third, validates them as critical readers who are capable of determining meaning in text. Fourth, provides them with the opportunity to express themselves freely. The second, context-oriented approach. This term refers to heterogeneous group of school and methodologies which don't regard literary texts self-contained. Independent work of art but try to place them within a larger context. It is divided into two parts. They are literary history and Marxist literary theory. Literary history, divided into many periods, describe the text with respect to its historical background, depth, text, and examines their mutual influence. Marxist literary theory is based on the writing of Karl Marx and examines the condition of production in certain literary periods and their influence on the literary text of the time. The first is New Historicism. New Historicism arose in US in the 1680s. It built on post-structuralism and deconstruction with their focus on the text and discourse, but adds a historical dimension to the discussion of literary text. For example, is Shakespeare's works are viewed as a concern with the historical document on the discovery of America. Second, feminist literary theory and gender theory. Feminist literary theory born on the movement of people, especially women, which has strongly established uh, academic discipline. Feminist literary theory starts with the assumption that gender difference is an aspect which has been neglected in traditional literary criticism, and therefore argues that traditional domain of literary criticism have to be re-examined from a gender-oriented perspective. In the development beginning in the late 1960, semantic issues such as the portrayal of women in literary texts by male stood in the foreground. It shows that men are dominant that women. In the interpretation of literary text, it is important to decide the citable for the text at hand and can lead to new results. Although text might imply certain approach because of its thematic, historical, or structural qualities, different approaches may often produce more original and rewarding results. Maybe enough from me. Thank you very much for your attention and thank you for watching my video. I'm sorry for all my mistakes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.